I'm so hoping this lawsuit knocks Greg Abbott down a peg or two. He deserves it.
Tensions are rising at the southern border, where the federal government has officially filed a lawsuit against the state of Texas over the construction of a buoy barrier in the Rio Grande. According to the lawsuit filed by the Justice Department, Texas officials violated federal regulations by not getting authorization to install the barrier from Congress. The floating wall is intended to deter migrants from crossing the border illegally. It's equipped with wrecking ball-sized buoys and 1,000 feet of barbed wire. Governor Abbott sent President Biden a letter on Monday ahead of the lawsuit saying, quote, "Texas will see you in court, Mr. President. In the meantime, Texas will fully utilize its constitutional authority to deal with the crisis you have caused."
There is no crisis. It's so funny how, like, right-wingers have this, like, delusion that there are, like, billions of people coming across the southern border to, quote-unquote, invade the United States and replace all white people with brown people. But that is not what is going on. The amount of people coming into the United States from the southern border has decreased.
Vice President Kamala Harris spoke last night, calling the buoy wall inhumane.
Across our nation, extremist so-called leaders demonize, target, and attack immigrants. In Texas, we see reports that authorities have pushed children and pregnant women who crossed the Rio Grande back into the river. People who refuse to provide water to other human beings who are in deadly 100-degree heat.
And it's funny how right-wingers claim to be Christian, and they say they love their neighbors and they pray for their enemies and stuff like that, yet they want to see brown people die.
Inhumane, outrageous, and un-American.
The buoy barrier is the latest escalation in Governor Abbott's mission to increase security at the border under his Operation Lone Star plan. Critics, though, say his tactics are unnecessary given the drop in the number of border encounters and crossings this year. And
Yeah, after the end of like Title 42, the amount of people coming across the border dropped significantly.
ABC News Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley joins us now for more on this. Hey, Julia, good morning. So we just previewed a little bit of what Abbott's response was to this lawsuit and showed some of that letter. Did we get any idea of what the legal argument, though, is that the state plans to present in court?
Well, I think that that letter really shows how they think that they are within their authority as a state trying to protect their own interests, whether it be taxpayer interest or otherwise, that they somehow then have the authority to step in and implement this immigration law. But I think that that's going to be a very hard argument to stand up in court because immigration is a federal law, and it's not clear that any of these efforts are really protecting those interests. They're spending billions on this effort. It's 1,000-foot buoy wall. It's not that they're, kind of cordoning off their entire state. They're really just making it more dangerous for migrants to cross, and it's not clear.
Yeah, it's 1,000 foot long, 1 foot deep, and it costs like $3.8 million or so. A total waste of money. It was just so that Ron DeSantis could give money to some friends and family that he knew making this.
That it's really done anything to bring down overall immigration numbers, which, by the way, are at some lows. They're at the lowest point they've been since the first month that Biden took office. So it's going to be interesting to see how this stands in court. Previously, we've seen a lot of states, usually led by Texas and other Republican-led states, suing the Biden administration over their immigration policies. Now the shoe's on the other foot. We'll see where this ultimately lands. It could be that they have a friendly to Texas judge when they start. If this ultimately goes to the Supreme Court, as so many of these immigration cases do, it'll be interesting to see where the Supreme Court lands when they ultimately do want to give power to presidents, and especially a future administration, to be able to implement immigration law. But they also do want to look at states' rights. And so it'll be interesting to see how this case ultimately plays out. But I think it's especially really a political one as we move further into 2024. or this is going to be really kind of the picture of the fight here, and whether people think that immigration is something that where immigrants need to be kept out at all cost, or whether they need to be welcomed into this country and given.
Yeah, we need to open our borders and make it easier for people to get into the United States. Um, Instead of making people wait 20 years to become a citizen, we can make people a citizen within weeks.
And humane treatment, and this case perfectly lays that out.
Julia, I do want to talk a little bit about the Biden administration's response to all this and addressing the lawsuit. They did so during a briefing yesterday. First, let's listen to some of that.
What you see the governor doing is dangerous and unlawful, and it's actually hurting the process. It's hurting the process of what we're trying to do. And instead of wanting to, or undermining, I should say, instead of coming to the table and trying to figure out a way to work together, he continues to do this really cruel, unjust, inhumane ways of moving forward with a system that has been broken for decades.
So, Julia, setting the lawsuit aside for a moment, is there anything else that the Biden administration might do that we might see happen, just removing the barrier, let's say, without suing Abbott or without seeing how that progresses?
I don't think that's a showdown they're willing to have in the water. Or at least we haven't seen any indications that they're going to come in and physically take away what is the state of Texas property. But, they could surge more resources, more. It's all happening in this one area of Eagle Pass, Texas. They could surge more Border Patrol there to try to, dilute the number of Texas state troopers who are already there. They could do more to monitor some of these claims that we've already seen of inhumane treatment. It'll be interesting to see how this one really remote part of the state of Texas becomes a big picture of the immigration fight nationally.
All right, Julia Ainsley, thank you so much.